could silence their phones, then we will have an invocation by PCSO Chaplain Joseph Simodes Jr. If he is not here, then we'll have a moment of silence. But he's coming. And then the pledge by Supervisor Miller.
Good morning, Board. It's a pleasure to be here. Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour, asking you for your blessing and help as we gathered together. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us the desire and find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that we would challenge each other to reach higher and farther to be the best we can be. We ask this in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll call the meeting to order. I believe we have Supervisors Goodman and Kavanaugh both on the phone.
Yes, Chairman, if I can just get them both to acknowledge. Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Supervisor Goodman.
I'm here.
Okay, I want to make an announcement that in one of our executive sessions, we have to have outside counsel, and he's only available at 12:15, so we may go into executive session in the middle of the meeting. First up is we have call to the public. Nobody has given me any forms, but if anybody would like to speak to the public, now's your time to do it. Remember, you have 3 minutes, and state your name and basically where you're from.
I'm Noel Reck from Eloy. Although some of the items are over my head, it appears there's a lot of good to be found in today's agenda. Grant money funding for nonprofits, a Human Remains ID program, a new Jaws of Life, child and family advocacy, the Stop Violence Against Women program, substance abuse, drug treatment and education, and victims' rights. There are several items that apply to drugs, gangs, and juvenile offenders. I'm hopeful these programs steer our youth clear of criminal activities in the school-to-prison pipeline that's so present in many of our communities while enabling those already in to turn their lives around. Lastly, I see that County Manager Liu and County Clerk Kennedy are up for review and goal setting today. Don't forget the raises that these two professionals deserve for all they do for the county. Props go out to both. There's a lot of good here. Today I implore you to continue with that good by speaking out as citizens first, and then secondarily with the weight of your positions regarding the pending government shutdown being cheered on by Donald Trump, and statements being put out by Trump and Arizona Representative Paul Gosar regarding General Milley being hung as a traitor. That kind of statement has no place, particularly in today's political climate. There is silence from our Republican legislators regarding Trump's statement. That's bad enough. But if Representatives Schweikert and Crane don't have the guts to condemn Gosar's vile, homophobic, sociopathic statement, perhaps they could use some prodding from you. Likewise with the shutdown, Representative Crane appears to be with the Matt Gaetz crew that wants to blow up the government, no matter the consequences or costs. These costs and consequences could be significant for Pinal County. Representative Crane could definitely use a reminder of that from you. Keep doing good, not just as supervisors, but as concerned citizens, because it's needed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Boots Hawks from Casa Grande. First of all, I'd like to give kudos to the board for having somebody come up and be willing to pray to God for his guidance and help. That is so important in today's climate. He's been forgotten so many places. Second of all, I'd like to call for our country to come together. And it starts in small areas like this. We are so divided, it's ridiculous. We just had somebody get up here and bash Republicans, whether they deserve it or not. I'm tired of it. I'm not up here to bash the Democrats. I could do it. I could go on for 20 minutes and talk, if I had 20 minutes, to talk about Biden and his group, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say, just look at our country and look how much more we could do if we could come together, if we could work as one for a better country, if we could select God as our number one leader in everything that we do. I'm beside myself, and I'm tired. I'm tired of hearing it constantly, the constant fighting back and forth. George Washington, when he left office, he said something that was very, very important. He said, in order to have political prosperity, we must be religious and moral. And it's time we get to that, gentlemen. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we will allow one more.
Advanced stage slows me down, Mr. Chairman, from getting up immediately. Roberto Ravelis, resident of Gold Canyon, and I proceed accepting the joy and enthusiasm that was invoked earlier at the start of this meeting. Mr. Chairman, today's agenda item 6, summary of audit results, repeats what we were told in June, that 9 findings of accounting and compliance deficiencies needed to be corrected expeditiously, whereas there were other longstanding needs that deserve the Board of Supervisors' attention. In 2 key findings, the audit found that the county had not provided sufficient resources to ensure both accurate financial statements and timely reporting and information sharing. These findings were identified as significant deficiencies. The audit stated the county's resources devoted to financial reporting are inadequate for its accounting and reporting needs, and that for several years the county has missed critical reporting deadlines. The auditor also observed that strong governance necessitates not only receiving timely, accurate, and complete financial information, but also having active dialogue between management and the board regarding the information. The audit's finding of 6 significant deficiencies and 3 material weaknesses pose a continuing threat to the financial integrity of our county. It is particularly disconcerting to note the following 3 findings. Number 1, procurement cards that have been issued with inadequate internal controls. Number 2, continuation of inaccurate and uncorrected reconciliation of cash recorded in the general ledger to the cash reported by the county treasurer. And 3, that the county payroll bank account has not been fully reconciled since July 2016, 7 years. The audit warns that these internal controls weaknesses expose Pinal County to heightened risk of errors and undetected misappropriation. Members of the board, for the sake of our taxpayers, please exercise your fiduciary responsibility. Clearly, these documented revelations of internal control vulnerabilities demand both financial and performance audits on the largest consumer of the county budget, the Sheriff's Office, which receives and consumes resources by its heads, commingled activities in both public and partisan arenas. Ask the experts who are presenting today, are these credible concerns? Today's summary from your auditors should motivate you to stop ignoring the audit's alarm bells. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Okay. We will go on to presentation of 20 and 25 years employees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 employees that we'd like to honor today. 3 of them from the Sheriff's Office and 1 from IT. So I'll start with that one first. She's been here for 20 years. She's an IT program manager, Lisa Shepard. I believe she's here with us. Hi, Lisa. Yeah, we've worked together for many years, and it's been a while that I've gotten to work on a project with you. But as you know, we've implemented some significant technology project upgrades over the many years. So thank you.
Go ahead.
I didn't know he was going to be here, so that's awesome. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Leo, Chris, good morning. It is an honor to be appreciated by the leadership of Pinal County. I have thought long and hard about the best memories I've had in the last 20 years and realize that they are still happening. So I decided to share with you why I love my job so much still. When the IT director posted a brand new position back in 2003, she was looking for someone to manage 2 grant-funded projects the county was just awarded. The only requirements for this position was to have a bachelor's degree in computer information systems and 5+ years experience in information technology. Luckily, I had both. One of the grant-funded projects was to implement criminal justice information sharing of data between the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and the County Attorney's Office. The second grant-funded project was to provide a needs assessment for a countywide Wi-Fi broadband initiative. I had no knowledge of criminal justice processes, nor did I have any knowledge of implementing countywide broadband. Though I was lacking in knowledge, I viewed that as an asset. I did not have any preconceived notions of how it should be, so I approached each project with the innocence of a child. I learned as much as I could from the talented Pinal County subject matter experts who performed the day-to-day activities and the expertise of consultants who implemented broadband. As I learned a lot about both areas, it became very apparent that the subject matter experts of Pinal County had very creative ideas of how to improve the processes within their divisions and were very motivated to work towards implementing solutions that would result in improved productivity and efficiencies within their divisions. The municipalities were no different. They were open to any opportunities to bring the high-speed wireless to their communities. Seeing the excitement from Pinal County employees and the communities set a fire under me to do all I could to improve their situations. With the leadership support, that led to creating lasting partnerships with the administration of the courts, Arizona Criminal Justice Commission, Arizona Commerce Authority, Arizona Department of Public Safety, elected officials, and department heads throughout Pinal County, to name just a few. And I applied for, and Pinal County was awarded over $5 million from several federal and state grant funding sources for Pinal County to continue criminal justice information sharing initiatives to include the Superior Courts and the Adult Probation Offices, as well as a statewide information sharing initiative where I convinced 13 of the 15 counties, sheriff's offices, and 26 law enforcement agencies across the state to agree to share their criminal information through a single interface. I was able to convince the 14th county a couple years later after they saw the success that we established. I also applied, and Pinal County was awarded several individual economic development grants through USDA for several municipalities where we partnered with the local community leaders, local broadband companies, Central Arizona College, and the Arizona Commerce Authority for workforce education. I performed business analysis for Pinal County departments who were in need of business process improvements, service expansion, new employee justifications, and RFP content as a few examples where I developed business analysis reports, needs assessments, feasibility reports, and gap analysis for county departments such as the county manager, fleet services, assessor's office, finance, development services, and the recorder's office, to name a few. Due to the benefits and success we had provided to Pinal County, we officially created the IT Program Management Office around 2007. The IT Program Management Office was created in order to provide private project management and business analysis services to all departments countywide. We have completed well over 100 projects for over 90% of the county departments across Pinal County. Where else can anyone have the opportunity afforded to me to perform such exciting, diverse, and challenging work that I have been empowered to perform for Pinal County? The answer, nowhere. No other place of employment has allowed me to perform the breadth of responsibilities I have been empowered with while working for Pinal County Information Technology. I have been in It is all due to the Pinal County leadership empowering the IT director in my case, who empowered and supported me in every way so we could provide all the services I have discussed. So, gentlemen, it is my honor to have served you for the past 20 years. I hope to serve you for many more. Thank you for all you do for the county and your time.
Robert, did you want to say anything? Or?
She said quite a bit, which is awesome, because most people don't say anything, so that's exciting. But no, project management is a very important piece of IT. I think it's important for all departments in the county to have somebody keeping an eye on projects, keeping them on track, keeping everybody together, wrangling all the cats, as you would say. So we certainly appreciate it, and we certainly appreciate Lisa. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for those words. Not everybody knows all the work that goes on behind the scenes and accomplishments that occur. So thank you, and what you just said is exactly the experience that we want people to have for their careers in the workplace with us. So thank you.
Do we want to do photos one at a time or all together?
Kevin.
We normally do them together.
Yeah, we usually do them together
Okay,
at the
all
end.
right.
Yeah, and we have to wait for Kevin too, so we'll buy time.
Who's up next?
So my sheet in front of me is a little bit different, but I'm going to go with the sheet on the screen because I'm assuming that one's more accurate than the one I have. So next we have Teresa Hermosillo from the Juvenile Court Services. Congratulations on 25 years as a probation officer here. I don't think she's here, and I don't see Denise either. But thank you, Teresa and Denise. Then the next four that we have are at the Sheriff's Office, and we'll start with Billy Bemis, and I see Chief Thomas and Chief Hedrick coming up. Thank
you. Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors, Leo and Chris. Thank you. So, are you going to say anything? Try not to. That was the response I was going to get. So Billy Bemis, for the last 20 years, has been what I would describe as an anchor on the night shift. You can have all the leaders you want as far as command, but the job gets done at the line level. And he has been that anchor that countless sergeants and lieutenants and captains and chiefs have depended upon. He is amazing. If I could get his children to stand up and his wife. Thank you. That is why he did it. You need to see tangible evidence on why he did it. And just like every one of us, when we started working and we started a young family, we all thought to ourselves, what are we going to do to provide the quality of life even better than I had? That's really the question we ask ourselves as providers, both husband and wife. We have been blessed, this county and specifically the sheriff's office, that he chose us to provide that quality of life for himself. He has been an example to his son and daughter and to his wife on what it means to be a professional, to show up every day and do his job. So, Billy Bemis, thank you.
Thank you.
Keep it rolling, Matt.
Right back up.
Next, we have Richard Benavides, detention officer, 20 years.
I've been waiting for this one. Richard Benavides. For one, he's a veteran. Served our country. Wonderful job. He really is the epitome of being a standard not only in our jail as an officer, but in his community as a coach and as a mentor. Countless young people have indicated to everybody around us of what impact he had on their lives. And that's just outside the facility. Inside the facility, he's impacted me. He's challenged me. And I mean challenged me. He's been confrontational with me in a positive way, forcing me to look at things from the point of view of all the employees. He walks into rooms representing the employees as the association's representative. And he did it countless times. He did his job there. As an officer, he provided safety and security in our lobby, which is the most dangerous spot consistently in our facility because we will face the active shooter. We will face the disgruntled person in there. And he did it with poise and grace. And if I could sum up his career, it was that. He completed his 20-year career with poise and grace. The only thing is, I wish I could have seen it. I wish they had a camera in his house because that's where it would have stood out as well. In his home, as a provider, as a leader, as a patriarch. So thank you for impacting me in the facility.
I believe that's all of them. Okay.
All right, Chief Thomas. Yeah. Oh, the other ones aren't here? Oh, okay. Well, we'll say thank you to Eric Larson, Deputy Sheriff, for 20 years, and thank you to Sergio Ochoa, Sergeant, for 25 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if we
You
can
have
get everyone to
pictures now?
come back up for the
Sat
picture.
down, I got to come back.
There he is. Now we're ready.
And all look in here. 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2. Happy this time. Cock smile. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Thank you very much.
County Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Clerk, do you have a couple of pictures? Thank you. And this first one, I wanted to make the board and the public aware of the progress and coordination that we're making on significant Regional Transportation Network, the Central Arizona Regional Mobility Network. And these kinds of networks take a long time to build. You know, if you look at the Valley, people were planning these and talking about these in the 70s to what you see now with the loop system that they have. And as a growing county, that loop system is extending to ours and through ours as well. So we're working on that. And I thought I was the photographer, so it's amateur. Kevin did not attend this meeting. But just to give everybody an idea of what we're looking at here, if you start at the top, and this is in Arizona Department of Transportation's conference room, you have the town of Queen Creek and those three folks there. Just to the side of them is Jennifer Tott, the director for ADOT. Next to her is the state land commissioner and her staff. And then some more ADOT staff after that, the state engineer, there, Greg Byers. And then you can see our Andy next to him. And then the executive director of MAG next to Andy and their staff. What you can't see in the corner as it rounds is City of Apache Junction. And then you have us here at the table, and I'm taking the picture from the back with our team, Celeste, Chris, and Tammy. And I wanted to emphasize this because of the level of coordination that occurs between all of these entities when you're building this freeway system and this regional network, and that this group getting together is pretty remarkable, that our visions are being aligned, and the execution of how we're going to do this is being aligned, and these meetings will continue. If we could flip to the next picture. Again, amateur photo, not Kevin quality, but if you were to be able to see what's on this board in the green identifies the roles that people are playing. So like lead agencies, supporting agencies, who's in charge of design, who's the interim owner, who's the funders, who's the landowner, who's going to maintain it and own it afterwards, who's responsible for planning and programming. And the 5 projects in orange that we're looking here is you got the build out of the 24 from the 202 to Ironwood, which will be built out to 6 lanes at full capacity. You got the interchange, or we call the TI at Ironwood and at 24, which is partly what, when their state legislators came with the big check of that $87 million, is what that's funding. You got the north-south, which we all know the significance of that goes all the way from the 60 up in the Gold Canyon area all the way down to the 10. And then you have the SR-24 extension that we want to take it from Ironwood all the way to the 60. And then you have the Central Arizona Parkway that goes from that 24 in the canal all the way down to Arizona Farms Road. And so all of those projects, everybody is assigning and understanding who's playing what role in this process and how we're coordinating and supporting each other to do it as quickly as we can, and to have things lined up and ready for when all the funding and as the funding comes through and starts to be developed. These are also very expensive projects. So we also would go with next steps after this, what action steps, at what status level we're at and what stage in each of these processes, so that we can make sure we do it the right way. We were able to qualify for federal funding, state funding, as well as local. So just wanted to thank everybody for their coordination on that and let everybody know that we do work on this heavily together, and we will continue to. And then speaking of other next large infrastructure projects that benefit the county, we do have significant announcement and progress made on what we call the Weeks Wash. And probably not everybody in the county knows about it. I'm sure people in Apache Junction, of course, do. And so James cut up a video that can help people understand. You see there, the Superstition Mountain. And let's go ahead and play that.
Monsoon 2022, a powerful storm causing massive flooding in Apache Junction. This is the Weeks Wash near Ironwood and Baseline. And as you can see, it is flowing strong. The water is raging, and we know of cars being trapped and crews having to rescue drivers.
We also have reports of some homes being flooded. And just as people there recover from the heavy rain today, they prepare for the possibility of more storms on the way.
It really is just a river out there. Even driving out here trying to get there, it was really a struggle for us and for all the other drivers out on the road. Water rushing. You couldn't even tell where the streets were. Police say that their phones were ringing off the hook for some of those rescues. At some points, they were rescuing people in up to 6 feet of rushing water. They said one of the hardest parts with these rescues was even finding out where the road was.
The section of roadway along Tomahawk and about 4th Avenue that suffered probably the most damage. And there's a section of roadway. At that point, I could not see that roadway just because the floodwaters were so high.
As you could see some more of the visuals, I'll just talk to it a little bit. The city manager of Apache Junction describes this as a legacy project, and a legacy project for him. The county did do some preliminary design to submit an application for federal funding on this. This is probably about a $90 million project, and the federal government did award $44 million to the project just recently. And it's a heavily coordinated thing with us, the feds, and AJ, and I think our county engineer is here to speak a little bit more in detail it and give a little bit more information so you can see what we're really talking about here. Thank you, Chris.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you, Leo, for that introduction and excellent video. Yeah, so we're very excited to see a federal investment and interest in this very important regional project for Weeks Wash. As Leo mentioned, that federal investment is $44 million on a potential $90 million project. And we've been working over the last few years extensively with Apache Junction to try to get this project off the ground, to collaborating and make sure we have a shared vision on how to address this problem that's been there for decades. This project would essentially eliminate the flooding problem for 1,600 homes, which those homes represent over $600 million in property value in Apache Junction. And it would make the adjacent vacant lands much more easy to develop as well, so they don't have to deal with the floodplain permitting requirements and, of course, the costly and burdensome flood insurance that would be required in these areas. So this project would, like I mentioned, eliminate 99% of flooding downstream. If you go to the next sheet, that map there at the top shows a before and after of what that floodplain would look like. Again, very significant benefits, and all things considered, it's a very small footprint as far as the project's concerned. Another great thing about this project is, we're designing it in a way that it will enhance our recreational opportunities, work with the trail system out there, and be a complement to the community rather than just, a drainage feature. One thing you may be wondering is, when are we going to break ground? And it's always a big question, what's the schedule? So best case scenario is we would see construction within 4 to 5 years from now. We still have a year of environmental work we've got to get through, negotiations with landowners, which I believe state land is a part of that, and BLM as well. Then, of course, we got the design phase. And Pinal County will be taking the lead on the procurement, and we're hoping to do this as a CMAR, or Construction Manager at Risk type of project, so we can get a better project at the end. So, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about this project if there are any.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, just real quickly, so the federal government, oh, no, then I won't, never mind. Don't do that.
No questions.
Information update, not agendized as an item. Thank you, Chris, and congratulations, and thank you to the flood control team. That's all I have for the report, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. This is a time for the supervisors to give district reports. Does anyone here have any?
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that recently there are some members of my district, and Supervisor Miller's as well, that have been impacted by the San Carlos irrigation project electricity bills. We've been working in the background with Congress, and we've made significant headway there through Eli Crane's office, as well as Senator Kelly's office. I believe they're discussing this today, and we found some important information that I can't really disclose today, but it's going to be a significant impact for the consumers. So we're looking forward to that resolution soon.
Anyone on the phone have any? Okay, looks like no. So I don't have any, but I just want to take this time to make a statement. Recently, there have been several online articles by some, I want to say, shoddy or lazy journalists regarding the 80-some million dollars that was collected by a tax that was passed by county residents called 416 and 417. That then got challenged. It went back on to another vote, but the money did come in. And the accusations are that this board and the county is somehow trying to take that money. That is the furthest thing from the truth. That money belongs to the citizens and the taxpayers who paid it. These groups that have fought against it, they want to return it to the merchants, the retailers. In my private life, I'm a retailer, and I sell a lot of stuff. I have never paid a cent of sales tax in my life. I collect sales tax, just like these big box stores do. That's not their money. It belongs to you, the citizens. This board has been taking our time, and it's thrust upon us by Arizona Department of Revenue to come up with a solution. Our solution is, first, from what I'm still hearing from the residents, is they want roads. That's why they voted for this tax. In the meantime, Maricopa's still stuck with one way in, one way out at 347, et cetera. If we cannot use this money for what it was intended for, then our next choice is to give it back to the taxpayers, which we're working on solutions for. In no way does this board want to keep this money and use it for other
Mr. Chairman.
things. So,
Mr. Chairman, I believe we're now straying off of topic regarding future agenda items and current notable upcoming events. If specifically what you're asking is for an update to be provided regarding that tax by county management, we can surely agendize that for the future to make this an appropriate topic for discussion.
I had 5 more seconds and I was through anyway, so I got it out there. That may well come up again, but I just wanted that information to get out there. So thank you. Back to our agenda, which is the purchasing manager's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I'm T.R. Peterson, your purchasing manager for Pinal County, and this is your purchasing report for September 27, 2023. First, the board is requested to approve the following contract awards. RFP 231228 for inmate communications. We recommend Global Tel-Link DBA Viapath Technologies be awarded a contract beginning January 22nd, 2024 through January 21st, 2025. This contract will be used by the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. ROQ 241928 for airport planning and associated services. We recommend Dibble and Associates Consulting Engineers, Inc. be awarded a contract beginning September 27, 2023 through September 26, 2024. This contract will be used by the Public Works Department. Next, the board is requested to approve the following contract amendments. RFP 190124 for prisoner transport services. We recommend approval of amendment number 4 to exercise the optional extension period from October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024 with U.S. Corrections, LLC. This contract is used by the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. RFP 200125 for legal case management software. We recommend approval of amendment number 2 to exercise the optional extension period beginning September 30th, 2023 with Carpel Solutions. This contract is used by the County Attorney's Office. IFB 221126 for landfill disposal. We recommend approval of amendment number 2 to exercise the optional extension period from September 29th, 2023 through September 28th, 2024 with Waste Management of Arizona, Inc. This contract is used countywide. And finally, the board is requested to approve the following cooperative purchases. Requisition number 168579 with Axon Enterprise, Inc. in the amount of $279,441.68 for tasers used by the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. and requisition 168581 with Axon Enterprise, Inc. in the amount of $313,078.02 for tasers, also used by the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. And that concludes your Purchasing Division report for September 27th, 2023.
Any comments or questions? If none, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Purchasing Division report as presented today.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have that.
Thank you.
Presentation and discussion of the annual comprehensive financial report. Randy Stinson and Angie.
Good morning, Chairman Surdy and members of the board. My name is Randy Stinson. I'm the Accounting and Reporting Manager for the Pinal County Office of Budget and Finance. Please welcome Carla Wall from the Arizona Auditor General's Office, along with Jay Park and Curtis Bright from auditing firm Walker and Armstrong. Carla will briefly describe her role in our financial report and audit. Jay and Curtis will present the fiscal year 2021-22 financial report and audit for Pinal County.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Carla Wall, and I'm a technical manager with the Office of the Auditor General. And on behalf of the Arizona Auditor General, we appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today and to join our contract auditors, Mr. Jay Park, Mr. Curtis Bright, with Walker and Armstrong in presenting the county's fiscal year 2022 audit results to you. Thank you so much for having us. But before Jay and Curtis get up there to present the results to you, I just would like to briefly explain our role as it relates to the audit process. The Arizona Auditor General is responsible for conducting annual audits of all Arizona counties, or for causing those audits to be conducted. Now, at times, we do contract out our audits, and when we do that, we make sure that we select experienced CPAs who have a lot of experience with counties and understanding how those counties operate, basically within the state of Arizona. And our office is contracted with Walker and Armstrong for the county's audits through fiscal year 2023. As part of our responsibilities related to the county's audit, we work with and provide guidance to Walker and Armstrong and their audit team as needed throughout the entire audit process. Once the audit's in its final stages, we review the county's audit draft reports prepared by Walker and Armstrong, and that's to help ensure basically that those audit reports meet applicable standards and the audit opinions expressed within those reports are consistent with the county's financial statements and the reported findings. So with that, I want to thank you again for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jay and Curtis, and they're going to present the county's 2022 audit results to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Good morning, Chairman Surdy, members of the board. Good to be here today. My name is Jay Park, and I'm going to be presenting with my partner, Curtis Bright, the results of the fiscal year 2022 audit. And I'd like to thank everybody that has been such an integral part of this process. Audits take a lot of time. So Ms. Wall introduced herself and her office's involvement in the audit process. We have a team that works on your audit for several months, but the county's team works very hard. So I really want to recognize the efforts of Ms. Woods and Ms. Stinson in particular for all of their hard work as getting us through this audit process. What we're going to do today is we're going to walk through via a PowerPoint the results of the audit. There are 3 deliverables that we're going to cover through this presentation. The first one is the big one. It's about 200 pages, which is why we summarize it in the PowerPoint presentation. So it would take
several hours, if not days, to go through this level of detail, so we're going to just bypass and really focus on the high-level results of the audit. The second deliverable is the single audit reporting package. That is required because you receive a substantial amount of federal funding, and so we issue a separate report called the single audit reporting package, much smaller, looks something like this. We're going to cover the results of this report in the PowerPoint presentation as well. The third deliverable is a letter addressed to you, the Board of Supervisors, and it's a letter that talks about our responsibilities, issues, any issues encountered during the audit, any difficulties, things like that, audit adjustments, and so I'm going to cover that as well in this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I'm going to start off with the first slide here, which is the summary of audit results. I am pleased to report today that the audit report, the independent auditor's report, is what we call a clean opinion on the financial statements. And that is on the financial statements because there's actually two audits. There's the financial statement audit and then there's the single audit. So that bullet point number 1 covers this document, this 200-page document. And what that means is, in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the accounting rules. Those accounting rules are referred to as generally accepted accounting principles. So it's a clean opinion, and that is the type of opinion that one should strive to obtain. So congratulations on that. I do want to point out there are always changes in accounting. We have a fairly large change that affected 2022, so we're highlighting that. It is a new accounting pronouncement called GASB 87, and it pertains to leases, and so it did affect the balances as well as the note disclosures. And what it really does is it puts on your balance sheet for the first time the financial effect, the cash flow effect of long-term contracts, either where people owe you money on leases or where the county owes others on leases. So we have an asset and we have a liability as well. So you're going to see that in the report, big change from prior year. We're going to go over a few key financial performance measures. Bullet point number 3, we start off by talking about cash. And I think that's really relevant for most organizations, not all organizations. Cash is important, need cash. So where you end up in terms of total cash is $320 million. That's a just under a $21.5 million increase from fiscal year 2021. So your cash balance is healthy. In terms of your general fund, and I do like to focus on general fund because your general fund is your main operating fund. Your total cash in your general fund represents approximately 40% of your general fund expenditures, okay? 40%. General rule of thumb is you don't want to go below 10%. So if you're at 40%, that's a good percentage to have in your general fund, okay? You have a lot of other cash. I want to also point out that you have unexpended ARPA funding of over $40 million. So that's one of the things that's causing that cash balance to be high. So as you spend that according to the federal regulations, your cash is going to go down. But just in general, from a cash perspective, you're looking strong. And you can see their total cash countywide represents 94% of total expenses as of 2022. Your pension liability decreased significantly, not a surprise to you, I'm sure, because a lot of effort was put forth to go out and obtain financing to pay off PSPRS. So that's really what you're seeing there. I want to point out, though, you might be wondering, well, we did that deal in 2021. Why didn't our pension liability go down until 2022? There's a timing difference between when you fund the pension and when the liability comes off the books. And so that's what you're seeing there. A couple of internal control matters that we are going to cover a little bit later in the presentation. It's bullet point number 4. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. What we have is mainly repeat findings from prior year. We do have a couple of new findings actually, and then 2 fell off. So there were 2 findings that were corrected during 2022. Okay, we're going to dive into the financial results. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. I do want to make you aware, I'm sure you already know this, but you do have access to these reports. You would have received a link from the Auditor General's office that takes you to their website, and so the reports are available electronically. We're also going to provide hard copies of the reports to the county as well, but all of this is public information and available to you. Not going to spend a lot of time on it. Again, a lot of information, just going to focus on the highlights. This is something called the Statement of Net Position, and this is countywide, okay? So this includes what we call all funds, and so we have the general fund, but you also have a lot of what we call special revenue funds, and we also have enterprise funds, business type activity funds, which is in a separate slide. So this just really focuses on your general fund and your special revenue funds. And so you can see here that increase in cash of just under $21.5 million. Your liabilities, you see that line item that says about halfway down there on the slide, non-current liabilities, decrease of $134 million. That's your pension obligation going down because of what you put into the plan. So that's why you have that large decrease there. And then we get to the bottom line there, which is total net position of $730 million. And so we talked about some of the reasons for these changes. Why does cash go up? Well, because you have revenues go up in a greater proportion than expenses. Not a bad thing. Okay, capital assets, a lot of this is infrastructure related, and you incurred over $165 million of capital outlays during the year. And then we talked about the bonds payable and the net pension liability. Pension liability went down quite a bit. Okay, this is switching gears a little bit. This is focusing on what we call your business type activities, which consist of, a lot of this is your airport and the inmates, jail inmate fund. You can see here where we have total assets of $24 million, total liabilities of $895, and then total net position of just under $8.3 million as of June 30th, 2022. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Curtis Bright, who's going to walk through some of the numbers in greater detail for you.
Good morning. So we wanted to break out the detail of your non-current liabilities. That's a big number out there. So your two big ones are your bonds payable and your net pension liabilities. And so we just wanted to show you about what the approximate balances, or what the balances were at June 30, 2022, and then the proportion of how they make up your non-current liabilities. It's easier to see some of these numbers in a graph form instead of just a list of numbers to see how that changes. On the revenue side, your total revenues increased $87 million. A big portion of that is your capital and grants and contributions. So during 2022, you received about $43 million in donated infrastructure assets as part of that revenue. And then your taxes also increased about $25 million. And so that's made up of sales taxes, state shared sales taxes, and property taxes all increased during 2022. It's sometimes easier to see a 5-year trend on how some of these revenues affect. And so to see how things affect, as you can see, things have continually increased over the last 5 years on all of your revenue sources for the last 5 years. On the expense side, we broke out the expenses as they show up in the financial statements, which is by function and the different functions that spend the money. Overall, your expenses increased $19 million. From 2022 from 2021. The big increases is highways and streets increased just under $10 million. That's due to some road projects that were being worked on during 2022 that increased those expenses. The other significant increase was in the welfare function or program, and that's due to the use of the emergency rental assistance funds, the federal funds that were used during 2022 that the federal government gave to the county. But overall, like I said, your total expenses increased about 6% from prior year. And again, I'm a numbers person, but we like to present as a visual, just so you can see the last 5 years of how the expenses have changed for the last 5 years by function, to call out the significant functions of the county. And then the last trend that is good to see is your total revenues and your total expenses are the blue and red bars for the last 5 years, and the green is the change in your net, or the value of your net position, which is basically the net value of the county, your assets less your liabilities. As they continue to increase, as your revenues increase over your expenses, the net position continues to increase from every year for the last 5 years.
Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to switch gears here and move out of the numbers part of the presentation. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that one of the deliverables is a letter to the board. This is a summary of that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. If there was something that was really critical for the board to know, let's say that we had a lot of difficulties during the audit, just couldn't get access to information, things like that. Well, I have to put that in writing. Professional standards require that. Okay, so you can see there from bullet point number 2 that we did not have any such difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We also did not have any significant misstatements during the year. Okay, so that's a positive reflection in terms of the accounting. We also received bullet point number 4, something called management representation letter, and that is a letter that management signs off on. We have to have that letter before we can issue the audit, and so that letter is available to you if you would like to see it. It is attached to the formal letter to the board. Okay, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the last area of our presentation. And I mentioned another deliverable called the single audit reporting package, and it's labeled as such on the document itself. And in there's 2 primary focuses. There's a focus on the financial statements, which is this, and then there's a focus on federal award programs, okay? Specifically what we call major federal award programs. And for 2022, what constituted a major federal program was any federal program with expenditures of approximately $1.4 million or more. Okay, so we don't look at everything. We look at larger programs, and we do a risk assessment in terms of what we look at. The reason I bring this up, though, is we have the findings categorized into 2 different areas. We have the financial statement findings, which we're going to cover first, and then we have the federal award findings, which I'm going to cover last. And so what we're covering first are the financial statement findings. You can see here, this is a new one related to procurement cards, and we had a few issues there with not having all of the approval in place. And as well, there was not an individual designated as a responsible party for one of the cards. And so that's a new one for 2022. The second one is a repeat finding related to cash reconciliations. And this is a matter of reconciling cash between the county's general ledger and what the county treasurer is reporting. And we have some unreconciled differences that have been out there for several years that need to be corrected. And then we also have an issue with the payroll account not being fully reconciled. This one is also a repeat finding related to receivables. This is a significant deficiency, as was the let me back up actually here. Okay, because I think this is important. The first one's a significant deficiency. The second one's a material weakness. So in terms of severity, what we're really saying is that second one is more severe as a material weakness. Okay, and what we're really saying there is it's cash. So cash is really important, and therefore having good cash balance and having it reconciled in a timely manner is really critical. Okay, this one here is, I apologize, I went too fast. Number 3 is a significant deficiency related to proper recording of receivables. And then number 4 covers high level, it's a matter of timing and timely reporting. And so what we're finding is that you have a federal deadline of March 31st. So this is a June 30th, 2022 audit. The report was due to the federal government by March 31st, 2023. It was also due to the federal government by March 31st, 2023. That's the regulatory requirement. So we issued at the end of June, and so just from a timing perspective, that's a concern. So we're calling that out. And a lot of what it comes down to, just in discussing this matter with your finance department, is resources and just having the right amount of resources dedicated to the accounting function. Okay, so really important to meet regulatory reporting requirements, and so we also think it's really important that the governance, you, also receive timely financial information. So to put it in perspective, the first year that I performed your audit was for your 2010 audit. That audit was issued in December of 2010. And so what we're finding is the county growing, you're getting complicated, and it's been more of a challenge to keep up on the reporting. Okay, moving into the federal award program findings. The first one is actually a bit of a duplicate of the one I just covered because, as I mentioned, it's also a compliance requirement for the federal government to issue your audit report within 9 months after fiscal year end, as well as there were a few other types of reports, what we call programmatic reports, that were also delinquent, and that relates to the Workforce Investment Opportunities Act cluster. And we had 2 or 3 monthly programmatic reports that were submitted past the deadline. Okay, next one is timely filing of the audits. So we discussed that. Again, March 31st, 2023 was the deadline. And then this relates to your WIC program and specifically eligibility. 2 of 40 participants, the required forms were not in the files. Okay, we do not audit your housing department, but because we're your auditors for countywide, we have to include their audit in your audit, and so this is they had 2 findings, both material weaknesses. One relates to the housing voucher cluster program, and then and that specifically was reporting. The amounts reported to the to HUD were incorrect. And then the second one is also related to the housing voucher cluster. Okay, that concludes our presentation of the 2022 audit results. What I'd like to do at this point is see if you have any questions.
Are there any questions? Anyone on the phone?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
I apologize. We have a $1 billion budget. We have a phone system that echoes. So, for the benefit of Roberto Revelis, to ask the question, we've been issued a clean opinion, but we have unreconciled cash accounts. Could you explain how we could have a clean opinion with these unreconciled accounts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the reason that you could have that situation is that your county has over $400 million in revenues, which is a large, that's a large number. And so some of these items are what we call immaterial to financial reporting. And so as auditors, we operate according to thresholds. And so we don't We don't look at all transactions, we don't test all transactions, and not all issues will have a direct impact on the audit opinion, but it doesn't mean that it's not a concern. So we're still obligated, even if it's not resulting in a material misstatement to the financial statements. The point is that if it continues to be a problem, it could, and it may not be detected. So that's how you get a clean opinion and still have a finding on the matter.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you referred to the Finance Department needing resources, so the reports that are past deadline, these things that are not done on time, would that be the need for more people in that department? I mean, is that the resources you're discussing?
Vice Chairman McClure, that's a good question, and that's my first response is yes, but I'm also not a member of management. What I see is what I see, and I see when we get the record, when we first get records, and when we begin the audit, and just the overall process that it takes to get through the audit process, from a timing perspective, takes some time. It does seem like there's a potential staffing issue. The other thing that occurred, though, and I think this is really important for 2022, is that there was turnover at the housing department, and that really affected this audit because we actually were able to work through some of the audit before we got delayed because the housing audit was delayed. And so that's also something else to look at, which is it's not always just an issue in the finance department. Sometimes there's issues in terms of getting the information from other departments that could actually hold up this report because you're very decentralized. Counties in general are very decentralized. So I can't say it's strictly a finance department either, because I don't think that would be fair because there's a lot of people involved in an audit. And so we're having to pull information from other departments as well.
Okay. So I thank you. I know that we've taken great strides in increasing staffing, and so I'm just wondering if that will probably be fixed this next year. Many of those, and I see the answer is right behind you coming to the podium.
I'm going to defer to them.
If you don't mind me commenting.
I don't.
So in my first year as the department head, I did a lot of really looking at the organization, figuring out what our needs were, where we were lacking. In the fiscal year 24 budget, we did ask for a significant number of positions that we're currently in the process of hiring. Because that takes place this fiscal year, we may still have some of these issues occur in our 23 audit because we're preparing those financial statements right now. Right now, I can tell you my team is working hard. They, at this moment in time, are on track to have a timely financial statement and audit, but that could change. And then on top of that, we're doing a lot of educating department level. We're reliant, as Mr. Park had stated, that we're decentralized, so a lot of the needs are coming from the department. We need information from them. So in the process of gathering that information, sometimes there's education gaps. So we're doing some training to get our department levels on the same page as us. So I think it's going to take some time. I most definitely see progress. But that doesn't mean that all of the resources we've asked for are actually in place.
I understand. Thank you. No, I understand that it takes time, and especially if you're relying on other departments, so you can't,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
To that question, and I don't know, Angie, maybe you can answer this. When you say other departments, we're talking about other elected officials' offices? Are we talking about the treasurers, the assessor, the recorders?
It's a combination of...
and then everything that's under this roof as well?
Correct. there's complex accounting anytime we have a grant, and we have grants across the entire organization. When we're talking about the courts, the sheriff's office, the county attorneys are, and even what falls under your board. But we're doing the educating, we're doing the analysis of the needs of those individuals in those departments as well. And like I said, we're making progress there. So I think all in all, it's a positive thing at this point.
Yeah, and that's a lot of moving parts. Turning this aircraft carrier is not easy. So, because I'm just visualizing so many. There are so many different aspects to this whole thing. I mean, just within any other elected office, I mean, like the treasurer, the assessor, whatever, they have revenues, plus they have grants that they're going after, and it just multiplies and multiplies.
It does, and like I said, making sure that they have the appropriate staff and the appropriate education to help us put together those financial statements. We're moving in the right direction. That's not to say that there might be some needs still out there.
Just to understand that that's holding up something else. I mean, it's very difficult, but thank you.
Yeah, there is progress.
I just wanted to be clear.
That aircraft carrier is moving.
I just wanted to be clear on that, though.
And Mr. Chair, just as another point of reference too, finance and budget were combined this last year, so there's a lot of restructuring going on as well.
Absolutely, and to be honest, I think that has been a game changer and a positive impact for the county. Having the people that are planning and the people that are reporting under the same leadership, I can see a great deal of success coming out of that.
Yeah, I think that'll be a positive.
Any other questions for me?
Is that everybody's presentation?
Defer to Jay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the presentation. Are there any other questions?
It does not look like it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
See you next time.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Okay. Item number 7, discussion of Pinal County Office of Emergency Management about funds that are not there to do things that are happening. Corey Redden and Chris Keller.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I could set the stage for this, a little bit. This board is familiar, the majority of the time, with the Office of Emergency Management when a declaration of emergency has been declared. Your typical fires or your floods, et cetera, and that's when this department really, comes up and shines, and when the board's responsibilities are really, put to task. But recently, there's been some inquiries as to what legal responsibility, what obligations does this department and then this board have when there is not a declared emergency. And situations are arising as we speak today where this department is getting requests from outside governmental entities, NGOs and the like, other entities out there on how can they provide assistance in various ways, whether it's sheltering, whether it's just food and water and so forth. So we thought it best, bring this to the board, give you a little bit of the legal background on it. And Kevin, there he is. I thought he ducked out on me. I'll provide some of that. And then from the management standpoint of the kind of resources that they have available and what their role is. And I think there is one kind of a flow chart that we put together to give you at least one scenario for shelter activation situations when those come, because that is one of the requests that I believe the department is being tasked with right now from some other governmental entities asking for possible shelter processes. So let me turn it over to staff first, and then Kevin can also add the legal components to that.
Thank you, Chairman Surdy, members of the board, Corey Redden, representing the Office of Emergency Management as the emergency manager. And as Mr. Keller has stated, we're looking at this situation because there have been changes to the U.S. Custom and Border Protections processes that have resulted in a substantial surge in the amount of border crossing at the ports of entry in Arizona, among other border states as well. And typically, your nonprofit organizations, including faith-based organizations, assist by providing resources and relocation of the migrants crossing the border. However, there are well over 2,000 crossings occurring daily, and this surge results in street releases in cities and towns of border counties. And Pinal County is in the Tucson sector, and there have been street releases in Casa Grande, in the city of Casa Grande. And our office has received resource requests from Casa Grande Police Department, and Ms. Prock is going to briefly go over those, or briefly describe those types of requests.
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Board. I'm Courtney Prock. I'm the Operations Manager for Office of Emergency Management. We have received resource requests for both funding and transportation and other equipment from the City of Casa Grande. These transportation-related requests are to transport street releases to the welcome centers established in other counties by nonprofits and faith-based organizations that Ms. Redden has described. Casa Grande has not declared a state of emergency, but these requests have rolled up to us because they need assistance, and we are the middle person between them and the state. However, Pinal County is unable to fill these requests unless we declare a state of emergency or utilize general funds to support these requests. We have transferred these requests to Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, but they will require cost sharing from either the county or the City of Casa Grande.
And then to describe this activation process for a shelter or a welcome center in the city of Casa Grande, what needs to happen is, and what has already happened, is that top box where the city or town requests a shelter, or in this case, a welcome center, to temporarily place the street releases that have not connected with a nonprofit organization as of yet. The city or town, so City of Casa Grande, has the responsibility of identifying that shelter or location, and then because they are in an incorporated area. At that point, if that were to be activated, then the Emergency Operations Center activates. We activate as the Office of Emergency Management. We coordinate all those resources at the bottom. So there would need to be food, water, and refreshments. We would need to establish which nonprofit organizations would provide that, or if the city or town would provide that. The shelter equipment, we can assist in providing some of that between Public Health Emergency Preparedness cache and the Pinal County Office of Emergency Management's cache of equipment. We could provide some of that. And then manning and staffing would need to be provided in coordination with the City of Casa Grande for perhaps their community emergency response team in the area. Their CERT team, they would have to, they don't have one, but they would have to request from another city or town that has one. They can also request the help of the Red Cross, Team Rubicon, or any other non-governmental organization that could provide manning or staffing. As with any shelter operation, whether it's a welcome center, what have you, public health would come in and do a population registry. Perhaps this probably isn't feasible as much in this situation because that population is transiently moving in and out of there too quickly. However, environmental health division in public health would need to do an initial shelter inspection of that location to make sure that they can safely temporarily house any of the public. This also includes our migrant population moving through. And then the Office of Emergency Management does have security cameras and other technical equipment to provide at that location. So that's describing this process.
So,
any questions of us at this point?
In the spirit of transparency, we did meet in an executive session and we were briefed on this, and we wanted to get this into the public so that people know that this is happening. And it seems to be it's been affecting other parts of the country, and now it's finally falling into our lap. And we don't know, is it going to expand from Casa Grande to our other communities and wherever? So that's why we did want to have this meeting in public, and no one's prepared for it. I know our sheriff's department is not, and the cities are not. So are there any questions or comments from anyone else up here?
Mr. Chair, I just have a question. And this is all about funding. So to be able to assist, we have to obviously fund it. But you get no funding unless we declare an emergency. I mean, that's where you go back to DEMA and get the funding. Otherwise, we're paying for it out of the general fund, which is an issue. And here comes Mr. Costello to tell us all about that.
Kevin, while you're up there, I know that in individual cities, the mayor can declare an emergency. In our situation, how does that happen?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, supervisors, first to your question, Mr. Chairman, yes, municipalities have their own emergency management organizations, and as the county can declare emergencies, municipalities have the ability to declare local emergencies as well. Regarding Supervisor McClure's question, based on the statute's case law attorney general's opinion, the state's emergency relief funds cannot be used without a declared emergency. So if the county provides resources, funding to assist with this situation, it would not be reimbursed from the state without a declared emergency. The county does have some limited ability to provide some relief. ARS 26308 talks about the powers of local governments in emergency management. And each county, incorporated city or town or state may appropriate and expend funds, make contracts, and obtain and distribute equipment, materials, and supplies for emergency management purposes. Emergency management is defined in the statute, and it means the preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation activities necessary to respond to and recover from disasters, emergencies, or contingencies. So that definition goes beyond emergencies. It talks about contingencies and things, and to mitigate and not just respond. So the county, I believe, has the ability to take some actions to lessen the impact of what would be considered contingencies that are putting in abnormal stress on the city's resources in order to hopefully prevent an actual emergency from happening. But without an emergency declaration, the emergency powers don't come into play. One of the things which there are often mutual aid agreements between governments, and mutual aid is not triggered without an emergency. So this board's ability, you do have some ability to provide some resources and assistance, but it is limited, and it will not be reimbursed from the state's emergency relief fund without a declared emergency.
I believe Supervisor Miller has some questions.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But if we declare an emergency, it doesn't mean they'll accept that we declared an emergency. We're always subordinate to somebody. So somebody has to say, okay, yeah, that is an emergency. Or they might say, no, that wasn't really an emergency, so you don't qualify for the refund. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, yes, if the county, and first, since this is within Casa Grande, yeah, it would be on them to declare an emergency first. Oh, the county could follow suit and support their declaration. That does not mean that the state would declare an emergency, and it is the state's declaration of an emergency that unlocks the state's emergency relief funds.
By chance, are they? Does the feds have something to do with the state?
No, this is
it just the state?
This is just the state.
Okay. I knew that little thing there. It doesn't mean that we will automatically be declared an emergency.
That is correct.
That's what I thought.
Supervisors on the phone, do you have any questions or comments?
What happens if we do nothing?
Spending money.
I'm, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, I'm not sure that question was directed at me. At this, legally, if we do nothing, then there is no, I don't see any liability associated with that or anything. So that's certainly within the board's purview to not take action at this time. And then the situation would progress.
If we do take action and fund NGOs for transportation and so on, then do we expose ourselves to liability potentially for doing that?
Chairman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, depending on what we provide, there could be a liability component. Transportation that you specifically mentioned could potentially expose the county to some increased risk of liability. If we are providing vehicles, if we are providing drivers, then yes, that could potentially expose the county to some liability.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also, just tag on to what Kevin said a little bit. The county does provide transportation, but for our volunteers and for our employees and the like, and these would not qualify for either of those type of situations. So we would need to make sure that if any kind of transportation was to be provided, that we would have coverage through the Arizona County's insurance pool for such transportation as migrants or whatever it might be that are coming in across the border that we are transporting, because that would be an additional thing that's not really within the county's scope to do, and it's probably not quite, I would say it's most likely not covered currently, because it does cover employees and volunteers those situations when the county has that, or inmates, if you will, because that's really the county's role at that point in time. So I just wanted to point that out.
Has anybody reached out to AFIP?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor, I have not yet. I have not been instructed to even check on that. So I just wanted to bring it up. That's my understanding that it would not be covered, but we would have to double check on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Have any of the communities in our county declared an emergency yet?
No.
Eloy, Coolidge, Casa Grande, anybody?
Chairman Surdy, Supervisor Miller, the answer to that is no, not at this time.
Nobody's declared an emergency?
Nobody has declared in Pinal County, no.
Okay. So we don't make a move until they do. I mean, I guess, can we do that without the cities? Because you had indicated, I just want to be clear on that, because didn't you indicate that the city has to go first?
Yeah, this would be, it's a local emergency within the city. It's their resources. An emergency is a defined set of things that tax the local jurisdiction's ability to respond. So it would first be contingent on Casa Grande declaring the emergency.
Have we communicated that to the cities? I mean, I think just so everybody's clear on how have we sent them a letter? Have we sent them a memo? Have we said, hey, this is how it works?
Chairman Surdy, Supervisor Miller, we have had that conversation, not with management of City of Casa Grande, but we are speaking with a City of Casa Grande PD.
Okay. Well, I think correspondence in writing to the mayor, the city manager, and any department heads that might be involved, I think to all the communities within Pinal County would be a good move. I mean, so everybody's on the same page as we move forward here. Whether or not, and then again, explaining that we may not be declared as an emergency, but I think the process has to be consistent with all the communities.
So this is...
yeah?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Miller, I am in contact with Larry Raines at the city manager there. We're coordinating in sync on this. So if they wanted to make a declaration with Mayor McFarland, we would know about it if they got to that point. Right now, they're able to handle things through NGOs, and and the support of transportation that they have. But there are reports that this could increase, and if it increased to a certain point where it was beyond the means of the current capacity, then it's something that they could consider.
But I think that, I think we should communicate this same process to all the communities in Pinal County. Because it's just because we haven't heard from them doesn't mean it might not be happening. Some people are probably trying to deal with it as best they can, but they ought to know that we could be a partner in this whole thing. I just think communication to everybody would be a good idea.
Understood. Thank you, Supervisor. I don't know that all the cities understand how this works and the order of it.
That's my point.
Correct. Thank you. Will do.
Mr. Chair, to that point, Mr. Liu, and all y'all. The fact that a city would declare an emergency and then it would maybe escalate to us still doesn't get us to the DEMA issue. And so I think to be proactive, I think we need to start working with the state to make sure that that's understood that this could be a problem and that we need to work to that end. And so that if a declaration of emergency does come up, that it's not just a dead end if we have to provide those services, because that's on the taxpayers.
Thank you. Chairman Surdy, Supervisor McClure, we will definitely take that back. What we do want to make sure that is known as well is that we are on a state call daily, and we have messaged that we are sans any emergency declaration locally and county. So they do understand the current status right now, and we convey any changes, including the resource requests, are rolled up to them regardless. So, but we will continue to message that to them as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it seems like, of course, this is not an action item, so we will be standing by to see what these communities say. In the meantime, I know we have the Sheriff's Department represented here. I would like them to keep us informed if you're seeing any influx of extra manpower or expenses that we have to take care of. Let us know if it's affecting the rest of the county. Anyone else on the phone have any comments or last words? If not, then thank you. Number 8 is discussion and updates with the Elections Department. Dana Lewis.
Chairman Surdy, members of the board, Dana Lewis, Pinal County Recorder. As an agreement with our MOU, I am to present monthly where we're at with certain things in regards to the upkeep of the Elections Department. As expected and demanded by the citizens of Pinal County, we've been busy. We can't afford to be and will not be distracted from doing the people's work. I've presented in the past all of the upcoming election dates. To bring to the frontal lobe, it should be addressed that we could potentially be having a recall election in March. We have had a city reach out to us in regards to some information. That would be less than a week before the March PPE election. Then, of course, there is the May election for a jurisdictional election that we have had somebody contact us from another jurisdiction in regards to tax information. Then there is the August primary and the November general election. Some key points that you should be aware of, training. Particular staff have received in-person hands-on training in the election management system, tabulation equipment, and the express vote ADA machines. The upcoming jurisdictional election on November 7th, the ballots were designed by department staff along with the programming of the tabulation equipment. Staff have attended the Secretary of State Election Official of Arizona's certification and recertification training. Staff have also received Zoom training from our election night reporting software personnel, ePulse, Meraki, which we use for our ePoll books, and work to ensure a seamless iOS update of the county's ePoll books. Staff is in the process of receiving continuous in-person AVID training. All staff and election cycle temps currently receive professional development training, FEMA training, defensive driving training, and are researching specialized warehouse safety training for the future. Security notes, the Arizona Secretary of State, Homeland Security, and CISA members, along with county stakeholders such as the Chief Information Officer, Chief Information Security Officer, Office of Emergency Management, and County Manager all attended. We discussed best practices, as previously discussed over the last several years when it comes to security protocols, and desired and as previously desired, the election management software, client PC, and server are now being moved to the tabulation room to illustrate the closed network and air gap system. There are now live ballots on site, and our live stream is up and running, and can be viewed on the Elections Department website. Due to constrained workspaces, cameras are being installed in the warehouse and signature verification areas next week to provide for observation of all activities, which adds another layer of transparency for our voters. We are scrubbing badge access reports and keycard accesses to ensure all protocols have been met and strictly adhered to. Staff met with Pima County election personnel to discuss the security exercise in alignment with our coup plan. We hope to accomplish this in the latter part of 2023, since both counties are conducting jurisdictional elections over the next 5 weeks. Personnel and budget, we have hired a deputy elections director and an elections specialist. We are working with the HR and finance department to review created positions versus funded positions. After this task is completed, we look to need to fill other department vacancies and review budgetary needs moving forward into 2024. We are working with procurement on the RFP for the ballot printing contracts and the GPS contracts. Polling places needed for the primary and general elections of 2024, still looking for physical locations at Precinct 37 and 99 in Casa Grande, 11 in Pacacho. We were instructed by the school superintendent we will not be able to utilize their space. 20, Randolph, we are working with the Miss Fabulous Constance Jackson to find a place in that location. And we've been working with members of the board in regards to finding locations in Apache Junction and Gold Canyon. Some poll worker highlights, because without the people, this process doesn't work. National Poll Worker Day was August 23rd, and that brought in an estimated 55 new applicants. But we still need poll workers in places like Eloy, Arizona City, Choo Choo, Bapchuli, Sacaton, Winkleman, and Top of the World. We've implemented some enhancements in our poll worker training to include some pre-work online modules, and then we've really enhanced our hands-on training portion so that we can ensure poll workers retain the important information going into the bigger elections. We've also created election day surveys for voters, facility staff, and employees to complete. And the poll worker database enhancements will be finalized by the end of October. Another announcement is the poll worker newsletter is up and running again and will go out in October, as long as the updated 2024 voter information brochure. The new building, Miss Natasha? Why talk about it when I can show you? This is a win, folks. We actually were able to take out the Arizona Secretary of State's Department of Homeland Security, and of course all of our stakeholders have been part of this process. But what you see here, okay, here's my age. That right there in the gray brick are our vaults, and in the brown brick, that is the warehouse. That warehouse is 12 times bigger than what we currently have to work with. Hence the reason we're putting those security cameras in our little warehouse, because we're going to need to use that for things like duplication boards and write-in boards. Those rebars that you see with the upside-down orange party hats, as I call them, that'll be where offices are. And go to the next one. See, those happy little party hats show either utilities or demark the rebar for security and safety reasons. Go ahead. Look at all that fabulous growth. Doorways, fire vaults, beautiful grading, another door. grading area there. That's where runoff is. I'm not sure what that is. That's a Hamachi question.
Footing.
There you go. Okay. In the dirt. And look at all that material that's there for us to utilize to continue moving at the fast pace in which we are. We'd hoped that this building was going to be completed by June 1st of 2024. We are under budget and ahead of schedule, folks.
Okay.
That's mud.
Yes.
Okay. It's mud.
Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, I have more. I have more.
So you have a question? Yes.
Well, go ahead.
You want me to keep going? Okay. Process changes. We've launched the eQual system and are currently looking into electronic reporting feature for campaign finance. Stay tuned on that. The entire ballot chain of custody and audit documentation procedures have been reviewed, walked through as an initial exercise, and revamped to ensure redundancies and accurate reporting. We've brought on point and pay and payroll processing, or in the process of bringing on point and pay and payroll processing. Communications with stakeholders continue to improve. We recently sent political observer guidelines and appointment forms to the party chairs for the upcoming jurisdictional election. We are working to support the city of Coolidge with a small election that they have in October as well. We meet monthly with all department heads regarding issues, and with the help of the Communications Department and Office of Emergency Management, we have created a way to communicate more effectively with our poll workers. An upcoming training with city and town clerks is being created on how to read voter history reports and work through the key that is provided to them. We've made strides in reestablishing relationships with school districts and have been effective in assisting with identifying resources for polling place safety and security. Plus, we have went back through the special taxing district databases, and we have refreshed it as well. Resources, supplies are being cataloged and consumables identified that need to be replenished. The asset management system that has been created in-house has created an autofill polling place checklist and currently tracks approximately $1.5 million in polling place necessities that we must maintain and account for. And I will stand for questions.
Now, Steve.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dan, for that comprehensive update on a lot of different things. But there is the elephant in the room that I want to bring up.
Absolutely,
that
sir.
we need to talk about, and that's the automatic recounts in the time frames between what can trigger a recount and the time frame in which it has to be completed so we can move on to the next section. We had a presentation at CSA last week about this, and we're looking at a real logjam here, that these recounts I don't think physically will be able to be done in time for the next step in our election process. The only fix I see is to call the state of Arizona needs to call special session and come back and rework these dates or these triggers, because this is a train wreck, and I don't know how else to put it. It's just not physically possible to be able to do it. So I don't know. You got any insight on what maybe might happen? And I know that you have a committee that's through your voter people and your recorders.
Sir, Chairman Sturdy, members of the board, Supervisor Miller, that is correct. So the Arizona election officials have met, and they have an executive committee that has given presentations to not only ACO, but to the County Supervisors Association, the County Management Association. We have been part of that process in Pinal County. It really kind of came hot and heavy the latter part of August as we were working through our processes, working with statutory guidelines and looking at, I think that word is pretty effective, logjam. We have statutory deadlines that we must follow. And due to SB 1008, it created, with the recount, it created some concerns, especially during a presidential election year. What that looks like is, in 2020, we would have had this issue if the SB 1008 had gone through. And knowing that bringing it down to the 0.5% that needs to be happened to trigger the recount means that the dates that we have to do for completing the 2024 primary election, completing all of the tasks that we need to accomplish with curing ballots, processing provisionals, canvassing the election, and then getting the next election programmed and ready to go for the general election, we have statutory guidelines that we must meet. And the way that 2024 calendar year sits, we lose 7 days, which is a big issue in our world. And it really does put us up against the deadline for the safe harbor with reporting the electoral college information, the electors to the state and feds. So it does. We have a problem here, and we've been trying to work through it internally if there's any way that we can continue to move forward, hence the reason we've come to you with presentations. The executive committee of the election officials of Arizona have met with the state stakeholders, the governor, AG, secretary of state, both majority and minority leaders. We're working to draft information. I understand with speaking with colleagues this morning prior to coming to this meeting that they believe that the drafted suggestions and possible fixes will be ready for public consumption very soon. We're hoping sometime later this week. It is important to note that this is a 15-county issue. This isn't just 1 or 2 counties. This is all of us. And it is a statutory deadline issue. It was brought to the attention of the legislature in 2022 when we were looking at the enactment of SB 1008. I don't believe that if we throw more money, more people, bigger spaces at it, that's not going to fix this. That this is a deadline, a statutory deadline issue.
Right. Yeah. Just manpower is not going to fix it. And
no, sir.
So, any indication from your executive committee that there might be an appetite between the majority leader, the minority leader, that they would be willing to call for a special session to come in and to more or less repeal this? And if they want to keep something in place, find something that works for the deadlines? I mean, that's really where you have to start.
Chairman Sturdy, members of the board, Supervisor Miller, at this time I have not been enlightened to that information where they stand. As recorders and election officials or election directors, we all have our little kind of things that are our projects. Sure. I'm right now doing certification, recertification for all of the election officials of Arizona. So that's where my focus has been. And they are feedbacking me information. Like I said, I met with them this morning on a phone call, and they hope to give us more information later this week.
Okay. Please keep us in the loop on any communications, if you don't mind. County Supervisors Association passed a resolution the other day in, kind of outlining the train wreck we got coming down here. So anyway, thank you, Dana. And like I said, just keep me posted.
Any more questions? Anyone on the phone?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Dana, you mentioned, delivering the internal election procedures manual to the county attorney previously. Has that been done yet?
Sir, Chairman Sturdy, members of the board, Supervisor Kavanaugh, we have presented part 1 of the internals to the county attorney's office.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. And before we get into the consent agenda, I've been asked to have a 7-minute break.
7.
He says 5, but I think we may need 7.
We can't do anything in 5 minutes.
No. All items will be handled by a single vote unless somebody pulls something for further discussion. Chris Keller wants to pull item E, and I want to pull item AA. Does anyone else want to pull anything, including folks from the public? If not, I'll ask for a motion on this consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda items A through AU minus E and AA.
Is there a second? There is a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes carry it. Let's go to item number E. Chris Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I just wanted to point out on this item there was a typo or at least a misnumbering on one of the dates that we have on it as referring to one of the agreements. Halfway through that item, it speaks to Central Arizona College and Arizona Commerce Authority agreement that was entered into January 11th. That should be January 17th. Probably when I wrote that down and gave it to the clerk, my ones didn't look like a 7 when it should have. So it's probably my error on that. So that should be January 17th of 2023. So that's the only correction on that item.
Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, Chris, if we can also include the new agreements that you presented to me for the record as well.
That is correct, yes. We supplied the Madam Chair with, the most updated agreements the other day regarding all of these items. Excuse me.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes, go ahead.
this is Supervisor Goodman. Could you give a little bit more detail in regards to item E, Chris? It would be appreciated for the public.
Absolutely, Supervisor, Chairman, Supervisor Goodman. Item E is really an addendum, First Amendment to 2 agreements that the board has previously approved. One being the development agreement that concerns LG for the battery manufacturing and the town of Queen Creek. And what we have done, because the actual size and scope and dollar contributed to the project by LG has ballooned from $2.8 billion to $3 billion, and some reconfigurations of the site and additional requirements that were discovered as the design was going on. There was some increased dollars that were then contributed by the town and by the county regarding this project. And so once we were into it, we realized that we really hadn't accounted for FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment, for the training facility that the county was going to be funding through ARPA dollars with the Arizona Commerce Authority and with the community college. Obviously, the community college did not want to go ahead and fund those dollars out of their budget. They hadn't accounted for that. And additionally, because of the supply chain and other delays in the project, operation and maintenance costs will have gone up. We had allocated a certain portion, and because of the timing of being delayed, we've increased the operational and maintenance costs that the county would contribute to that facility. Again, the college didn't want to be able to be on the hook for the operation and maintenance costs. So we've restructured portions of the agreement, so making it more flexible so that from certain buckets of the agreement, that we could transfer funds over and actually to utilize the maximum amount of ARPA dollars that we have available. As you heard previously from our outside auditors, there's approximately $40 million that's still sitting waiting there for the ARPA dollars to be expended. A good chunk of that has been earmarked for this training facility to be able to increase worker training for this plant, for new energy jobs and the like. So it fits within those parameters, and that's the main areas that we are really looking at contributing and expanding this. It triggered additional dates for when things needed to be started. We're looking hopefully to have the training facility commence construction before the end of this year. Design is hopefully going to be underway shortly, and have it operational by approximately this time next year is what we're shooting for. So that employees, county residents, and the like could start getting trained for these new energy type jobs. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. And
that does.
Okay. And I don't know if Leo had anything. This has been ongoing negotiations for 6+ months at least that we've been trying to just kind of work through the details and stuff of that type.
And there was just a groundbreaking on the other section of the CAC Superstition branch, and I did see where the training center will go.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. You just reminded me. The college has already approved the IGA amendment last Tuesday. They took it to their council, and that was approved. So that portion, again, that is a 3-party agreement between us, Arizona Commerce Authority, and the Central Arizona College. And the college did approve it by their board last Tuesday.
Okay. Can we have a motion on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion on item E with the corrected date of January 17th and the updated agreements.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. The next item, whenever there's an issue or an item coming up with animals and especially dogs, I think the public likes to hear about that. So what is this all about? And a local organization that's helping.
Good morning. Matt Thomas, Chief Deputy for the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. Chairman, Supervisors, what this is Tom Berger from Tractor Supply Company in Casa Grande reached out to our K-9 unit, our sergeant, and they had a discussion, and they have a project they call Life Out Here, which is a stewardship project that Tractor Supply runs, and they invest in their local communities. And so he reached out to our sergeant and said, hey, I would like to help out your K-9 program. And the initial discussions were about food for the dogs, for our K-9s that work the street. But the K-9s are very finicky, and food is problematic. Like once we get them on one food, we tend to stay with that for their lifetime because they get real finicky with switching foods. So they had that discussion, which led to a discussion about what are the needs, which is kennels for the animals. And so Tom said, well, let me help you there. And Tractor Supply Company is donating 2 kennels to our K-9 program, and they have yet to receive those. Once this goes through, they're going to start working on pouring the cement and getting the kennels ready to install for 2 of our K-9s. And again, it was Tom Berger over at Tractor Supply Company out of Casa Grande that reached out and helped us with this.
Cool. Of course, my hope by making this public is, anytime another business or organization wants to help, I mean, we can always use help at our kennels, and Apache Junction has one out there as well. So we appreciate that business stepping up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, can we have a motion on that?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve item AA as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the ayes have it. Okay, we're now going to our district meetings, so we'll go into the Public Health Services meeting. Marissa.
It's all consent, Chairman.
Oh, this is all consent.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to pull anything from this consent agenda? If not, then I'll ask for a motion on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent items of the Pinal County Public Health Services District A through D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the ayes have that. We'll now go into the item number 11. So we're back to performance evaluation report with Heather Patel. And this will be a public hearing.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. This item before you today is our annual performance report for our HUD funding that we receive, which includes the Community Development Block Grant, home funding, and our Emergency Solutions grant funds. This is just the annual report, so it covers the activities that we completed from July of 22 to June of 23. During that time, we did complete projects that were from our 2019, 2020, 2021 and 2022 funding, and we spent over $4 million during last year to complete these projects. In 2019, the projects that we had allocated and completed this last year included 11 emergency repair projects on owner-occupied homes, as well as we finalized the design and engineering of the Colonial del Sol sewer system. We also finished off our CDBG coronavirus funding. We provided 13 households with mortgage and rental assistance. We constructed the Arizona City Library. We provided 2 nonprofits with some funding for providing housing for persons experiencing homelessness, and so in turn they housed 47 people. And then we did some improvements at the Town of Mammoth pool. Our 2020 funding, we finished off our Hopi Hills Waterline project and fire hydrant project. We also purchased and installed a SCADA system in Mammoth, and Florence did some ADA compliant sidewalks. With our 2021 CDBG funds, again, Hopi Hills, that went over 2 years of funding, and then Florence did another sidewalk project, and then Mammoth did some improvements in 3 of their parks.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Ms. Patel, what is SCADA?
Oh, okay.
Just for...
I'm not exactly sure what it stands for, but what it does is it's a system it's a computer system that helps them with their water system, so they can turn on and off wells, they can check wells, things of that sort. But I can't tell you what it stands for, sorry. And then finally, we did the San Manuel Senior Center. Now on to our home funds. We were able to replace 2 homes with our housing rehab program with our 2020 funds. Our 2021 funds, we did improvements to 4 single-family homes. And then we also had a subrecipient agreement with Habitat, and we constructed 2 homes that were sold to low-income households. We also have Home American Rescue Plan funding. And with that, we provided, we have subrecipients with Against Abuse, HOHP, A New Leaf, and Horizon Health and Wellness. Although the Against Abuse and HOHP is ongoing, and A New Leaf is ongoing, the Horizon Health and Wellness project completed, and what that was the creation of 8 rental units. The home ARP funding was specific to serve qualifying populations, which include persons who are experiencing homeless, people who are at risk of homeless, as well as persons who are domestic violence survivors. So those 8 rental units are up in Apache Junction and can serve any of that population. On to our Emergency Solutions Grant Program, we finalized our rapid rehousing project, and that housed 22 persons experiencing homelessness. So pretty much that is what we did in a nutshell. The CAPER does go into a little bit more detail in some things with the financial aspect of it. But that is all, unless you have any questions.
Any questions or comments? This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item number 11 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And there are none opposed. That carries.
Thank you.
Item number 12, public hearing discussion of case 2023 SUP 01222.
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
board members. The applicant was unable to obtain a signed Prop 207 waiver from the property owner due to the property owner's camping in the Greer area. So he's assured me that they've set up a meeting, I believe it's for the 2nd, so that we'd like to continue this then to the next available date, which is the 4th.
Okay, this is still listed as a public hearing. I still have to go and ask. Would anyone like to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing and then ask for.
We leave it open.
We're going to leave it open because the recommendation is for continuance.
Continue it, and we leave the public hearing open.
Yeah, leave the public hearing open. Okay. Now a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue with public hearing to October 4th, 2023 at our board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And we will hear that later. Any future items that we would like to talk about on item number 13?
Mr. Chair, I would like to hear from, well, he's not here, County Attorney Volkmer on the diversion program and the reentry programs that we have going.
Yes. The whole county would like to hear about that, I'm sure. Anyone else? Anyone on the phone? Okay, looks like none.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may. Just, I think we do need to stay on top of this. These trigger dates for recounts. So I don't know if Dana's scheduled for every meeting, but we should have some type of update on how we will address the recount and hit the statutory deadlines every meeting until it's resolved.
Is that that's a legislative update?
It is a legislative update, I guess, would be the way to look at it.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Chris?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Assuming that does become, legislation that's trying to be put in place, it would definitely be a legislative update. You may also want to consider whether or not CSA or a representative from ACO, because they are the ones that I believe are also pushing for that legislative change, may want to do a presentation or at least dial in to make the board aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, we didn't have a legislative update today.
Well, there it is.
Okay. All right, so we will keep on top of that then, and Leo, if you'll make that happen. Okay, with that, I think that is all of the regular business. I will ask for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll be in executive session. We'll come back to adjourn.
Riveting when we adjourn.
Can I have a motion to come out of?
Mr. Chair, I move we adjourn executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're out of executive session and we are adjourned.